It was the spring of 1971 in Columbus, Ohio. The town was buzzing with the upcoming Easter celebrations, but over the past few weeks, there had been a string of disappearances in the small town, and the locals were growing restless. Rumors and theories spread like wildfire, but no one knew the truth behind the mysterious disappearances. Me and my friend, who I'm going to refer to as Jeff, being curious and adventurous teenagers, decided to take matters into our own hands and investigate. We gathered our flashlights and headed towards the outskirts of the town where the last person went missing. As we walked through the deserted streets, a sense of foreboding crept over me, but I pushed the feeling aside and followed my friends towards our destination. After a long walk, we finally stumbled upon an abandoned farmhouse. It was old and decrepit, with broken windows and a door hanging off its hinges. The perfect setting for a horror movie, I thought to myself. Jeff, however, seemed more intrigued than scared as they urged me to join them in exploring the abandoned house. He started laughing out loud and doing silly, evil laughs to relieve himself from the fear. With a sense of anxiety, I followed him inside. The air was musty and thick with dust, and the floorboards creaked under our weight. As we walked through the rooms, we found old furniture covered in cobwebs and broken belongings scattered around. On the walls, photo frames were hanging with pictures of a mysterious family, but it was clear that no one had lived here for a long time. As we ventured further into the house, we began to uncover horrifying secrets, and Jeff's attempts to make the situation look funny and superficial suddenly stopped. In one of the rooms, we found a blood-stained bed with restraints attached to it. In another, we found newspaper clippings about missing people, including the latest disappearances in our town. In the basement, we found a makeshift torture chamber with chains and tools that sent shivers down our spines. I looked back at Jeff with concern. We had to leave. As we tried to make our way out of the house, we heard footsteps coming towards us. Panic set in as we realized we were not alone. Suddenly, a group of people appeared before us. I could not believe my eyes. They looked eerily like the mysterious family that used to live in the farmhouse. They were holding knives and hatchets in their hands, and they were not happy to see us there. Before we could react, they attacked us. Jeff and I started to run, but I was closer to the door, and my survival instinct had long kicked in. I watched in terror as they took Jeff away. That's the last image I have of him in my mind. His green eyes sunken in fear, his mouth opening to a blood-curdling scream. I ran for my life and left the farmhouse. I went straight to the police station and told them everything that had happened. The cops immediately went back to the farmhouse, but when they arrived, the whole place was on fire, so they were never able to find Jeff. Years have passed since that horrific night, and I still carry the guilt of leaving Jeff behind. Somehow, I know that I may not ever recover from it all. And besides, ever since that night, his family avoided interacting with me of any sort. The nightmares of that house still haunt me to this day, and somehow Jeff would always show up in them, screaming for help. But now, strangely enough, he looks like one of them. I'm scared that someday he might come back for me. I had just finished college and was ready to start a new chapter in my life. I had accepted a job offer in Hot Springs, a small town in the countryside. The pay was good, and I was excited to move into my own place. The only downside was that the house I would be living in was old, but that wasn't a problem for me. I had always loved old houses. They had a certain charm to me. It was Easter night in 1983. People were lighting candles and making fires all over the city when I arrived at my new home. I was met by my landlord, Mr. Miller. He seemed like a friendly old man, but there was something off about him. He gave me the keys to the house and showed me around. As we entered the basement, I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine. The basement was dark and musty, with old furniture covered in dusty sheets. "Is there anything I should know about the house?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. "Oh, just some minor plumbing issues, nothing to worry about," Mr. Miller replied with a smile. I shrugged it off, thinking that it was just an old house after all. I spent the next few days unpacking and settling in, but every time I went down to the basement, I felt a strange presence, like someone was watching me. One night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard a strange noise coming from the basement. I dismissed it as my imagination and went to bed, but the noise continued, and I couldn't fall asleep. I decided to investigate and made my way down to the basement. As I descended the stairs, I noticed that the door to the basement was slightly ajar. I cautiously pushed it open and stepped into the dark basement. That's when I saw him. A man sitting in the corner of the basement. He was dressed in ragged clothes and had a deranged look in his eyes. I froze in fear, not knowing what to do. Before I could even process what was happening, the man lunged at me and pinned me to the ground. I tried to scream, but he covered my mouth with his hand. I could feel his hot breath on my face as he whispered, "You shouldn't have come down here, Lily." I recognized the voice. It was Mr. Miller. My friendly landlord was now a maniac who had me trapped in the basement. I struggled to break free, but he was too strong. He dragged me over to a chair and tied me up. I was terrified, not knowing what he was going to do to me. I begged him to let me go, promised not to tell anyone, but he just laughed. He told me that I was going to pay for being nosy and coming down to the basement. That's when he revealed his true intentions. He was going to rape and torture me until I begged for death. I could feel the tears rolling down my cheeks as I was violated by this madman. My screams echoed in the empty basement, but no one could hear me. I was completely at his mercy, and there was nothing I could do. Days turned into weeks, and my sanity was slowly slipping away. I had given up all hope of being rescued, knowing that no one knew I was trapped in the basement. Mr. Miller had become more and more sadistic with each passing day, making sure to leave lasting scars on my body and all over my face. One day, I managed to free myself from my restraints and fled to the upper floor of the house. I tried to escape, but all the doors and windows to the outside were nailed shut. I found a weapon in one of the rooms, a knife, and set out to confront Mr. Miller. I planned to kill him and escape, but I was too late. Mr. Miller had discovered my escape attempt and was already on his way up the stairs to kill me. I hid behind the door and waited. I could hear Mr. Miller's footsteps getting louder. He started laughing and calling my name and threatening me. Finally, when he reached and entered the room, in a desperate bid to save myself, I stabbed Mr. Miller, mortally wounding him. As Mr. Miller lay dying, the police arrived. They had been alerted to the situation by a concerned neighbor who had noticed strange occurrences at the house. They found me, covered in blood and visibly traumatized. Mr. Miller died on the way to the hospital, and in the end, I was left with the knowledge that I had prevented Mr. Miller from claiming another victim, but the trauma of my ordeal was too much to bear. I couldn't live with the constant reminders and chose to take my own life rather than continue to suffer. It was the year 1922. Easter had just passed, and the town of Frankfort, Kentucky, was slowly returning to its normal routine. However, for one young girl, the nightmare was just beginning. My name is Jackie, and I'm the youngest daughter in the McAllister family. I live with my parents and my older twin sister, Jill. We were inseparable, always playing together and finishing each other's sentences. But that all changed when Jill died in a tragic accident a few months ago. Ever since her death, strange things have been happening in our house. Every night, she haunts me in my sleep. She appears to me, her eyes hollow and her voice echoing, whispering my name over and over again. At first, I thought it was just a dream, a manifestation of my grief. But as the nights went on, I started to realize that this was something more sinister. Sometimes Jill's ghost would speak to me when I was awake, telling me things that only she and I knew, memories that we shared, secrets that we kept. It was as if she never truly left me, and it both comforted and terrified me. But it wasn't until one night that Jill's ghost appeared with a warning. "Beware, Jackie. Our parents are lying to you," she said, and then she vanished into thin air, leaving me shaken and confused. I couldn't ignore her words, and I began to question everything. What could she possibly mean? Why would they be lying to me? And why was she still here talking to me? I knew I had to find out the truth, no matter how terrifying it may be. I began to dig into my family's history, searching for any clues or answers. I discovered that our parents were keeping a dark secret from us. Jill and I were not their only children. They had another daughter who died under mysterious circumstances before we were born. I was shocked and devastated. How could our parents keep such a huge secret from us? And what happened to our older sister? I knew I had to confront them and demand for the truth. But as soon as I mentioned our sister's name, my parents' demeanor changed. They became defensive and angry, refusing to answer my questions. I realized then what Jill was warning me about. They were actually lying to me about something, but I couldn't dwell on that for long. As Jill's ghost continued to haunt me every night, she became more aggressive, her whispers turning into malevolent screams. I was afraid, and I knew I had to put an end to this. I sought the help of a local medium who revealed to me the truth about my sister's death. It was no accident, as our parents had led us to believe. They were responsible for her death, and they were willing to do anything to keep their secret hidden. As I confronted my parents with this knowledge, Jill's ghost appeared once again. This time, she was not alone. The ghost of our older sister was with her, and it was then that I realized she was telling me the truth all this time. Filled with anger and betrayal, I demanded the truth from my parents, and as they confessed to their heinous crime, the two ghosts vanished into thin air, leaving me alone in the darkness. The truth was finally out, but it came at a great cost. As I looked back at the events that transpired, I couldn't help but wonder if Jill's ghost was trying to protect me all along, or if she was just using me to get her revenge on our parents. One thing was for sure, I would never be able to look at my family the same way again.